Hello, welcome to the presentation. Today I will be discussing the genre piece I submitted. It's the fourth chapter of a romance fiction novel I'm currently in the process of writing called Moon So Blue. I will be discussing the plot, the context, why the context is so important, my inspirations, and the conventions used within this chapter and the novel as a whole. The title Moon So Blue came to me quite quickly. I've always incorporated imagery which includes astrology, anything to do with space, stars, planets, and in this case, the moon, which is commonly associated with the romance genre when we see couples laying under the moon, or separated lovers staring at the moon when thinking about their spouse. And in this novel, the main characters Karis and Alina are personified by the moon, though however bright they might shine, there is a tint of sadness, the blue, that doesn't completely darken the brightness, but makes it less able to shine as much as it could. This is based on a lot of factors which I will be talking about in this presentation. Moon So Blue is a romance novel set in the 1970s to 1980s America. It revolves around Alina Hartman, a famous singer and her clarinet player, Karis Bernetti, who fall in love and become a target of homophobia. The novel explores their relationship and how they handle the pressures of fame. It ultimately establishes hope for LGBTQ+ people, that things are changing for the better. To give you a little more detail, the events that take place in this novel are complementary to what went on in real life with stars such as Freddie Mercury and Elton John, who faced homophobia throughout their early careers, and it's something that's still happening today. What makes it both romantic and heartbreaking is how it's a constant fight for Karis and Alina, as they are able to live their dreams, but these dreams have a consequence, as they are butchered by the newspapers, their fans, and even their own families just for being who they are, and this is where the context comes into play. So here we have 1969, which was the end of the Stonewall riots. In the 1970s, revolutionary progress for the LGBTQ+ community. There was the first gay television movie, Sunday Bloody Sunday, and the release of Cabaret. This is really important because being a writer, I can see how important it was for the community to see these people on screen for the first time. And it was also shared to a larger audience outside of the community, so they were able to accept it more if they did so wish to. Also during the 70s, we saw Edward Koch, the first elected official in Congress to publicly rally for the queer people of Greenwich Village. This was also a big step because for someone in power like him to rally for us is revolutionary. In December 1973, 13-0 voted against homosexuality being listed as a psychiatric illness. Then after that followed the first gay pride, LGBTQ+ groups were formed, and homosexuality was legalized in many countries. The 1970s really saw the first glimpse of change for queer people, and this is what I hope to establish alongside the hardships that queer people faced, because we've all seen 100 stories on everything that is important for us to learn, but something that isn't written as often is hope for queer characters, that we are heading in the right direction, and amongst the tragedy, there are some who came out of it living much happier lives and are role models for this generation, which is why I decided on a happy ending for Karis and Alina, while also exhibiting the pain that they had to suffer in order to reach that point, such as Karis and Alina being forced to split once rumours began to spread, Alina having to marry a man to keep these rumours at bay, and a vicious attack on Karis which leads to the pair's quit from music and heading back to Devon where Alina grew up. Before reading this novel or any novel of this theme, I feel it's really important for the reader to be aware of the facts and the history behind it. During this chapter I submitted, Alina recounts meeting Karis for the first time. There is nothing special about this chapter when you compare it with more exciting events, because it's just two women enjoying each other's company, and it highlights what life should be like, that they should be able to share these moments without the fear of being prosecuted for it. Of course, in this chapter they are not yet romantically involved with each other, but it goes to show how much easier it was for them before they dared to love one another. I had a lot of inspirations. Being a massive fan of the 70s and 80s music, it was amazing for me to create a character like Alina, who is based off of singers like Debbie Harry, Olivia Newton-John, and Agnieszka Folskog. I think a character like hers brings so much life to a dark storyline and brings something new, as singers like her were always seen as so clean and polite, and Alina is all of those things, but she is also immediately discriminated against because of her sexuality, which shows that she could have been the nicest, prettiest, most talented woman and still be ridden off, unlike someone like Debbie, Olivia or Aggie, as they were the nation's sweethearts and are still adored today. They didn't have to struggle with this other thing that Alina did. I definitely based Karis off of someone like Karen Carpenter or Frida Lyngstad, who I find to be the complete opposite of Alina's type of character. I find she brings a charm and a quirkiness to the novel that she uses to disguise her concern for Alina. I think their dynamic is one that is commonly used in the romance genre, my other inspirations being the modern A Star is Born, where we have Ali and Jackson, who are like sun and rain, the Runaways with Joan Jett and Marie Curie, and finally The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, a 2017 novel written by Taylor Jenkins Reid about an aging Hollywood actress, Evelyn Hugo, who reveals her decades-long lesbian affair with fellow actress Celia St. James to an upcoming journalist. This novel especially focuses on how these women had to hide their relationship in the fear that their reputations would be tarnished, and demonstrates the same things that Karis and Alina had to sacrifice. There are a lot of conventions of the romance genre, I believe, in this novel, which includes Richard von Krafft-Ebing's Psychopathia Sexualis 1886, which is true love, sentimental love, platonic love, friendship, and sensual love. I believe we see all examples of this theory as Karis and Alina begin as friends, but remain so even throughout their relationship, which would be platonic friendship and even sentimental love. They naturally gravitate towards true love and sensual love as their feelings develop, and because there is never any doubt about their love for one another, this remains true, and this novel becomes romance through and through despite the secondary morals to it. We also see lovers found, lovers split, and lovers reunited. The whole plot is about them falling in love and then splitting because of the pressures, and reuniting once they realise what the most important thing is for both of them. During this chapter, Alina looks back on meeting Karis for the first time, which represents lovers found. We witness how they got along and how, even though they didn't even know each other, they seemed to click and became close very quickly. This suggests that they were never meant to be friends but lovers instead, as they are both very drawn to each other. I chose to submit this chapter because it shows how the friendship began and how it reflects on the future development of their relationship. This leads into forbidden love, which is obviously common ground for the romance genre. Moon So Blue is in first person and is narrated by Alina. Her vocalization educates us on what happens in the novel and her own thoughts and feelings about said events. Because of the nature of the novel, her emotions are often hard for her to comprehend, whether that is because she is somber, smitten, or excitable. Although there's no way for her to get inside the other characters' heads, she often guesses how they feel by processing their actions and facial expressions for us to get an idea of their true reactions. Because of her sincere personality, I believe she is a reliable narrator. She tells the story in chronological order, which sees the beginning of Analepsis, which is a story told through flashbacks. She begins the story by having her first solo album released, which is 1974, and then by the end of the novel, we're in 2022, the end of events ending in 1990. She uses the novel as a diary, as it's told through flashbacks, and we are told background information about why a certain thing is happening and what is about to happen next. This leads on to the symbolic codes. There are many deeper meanings within the novel which lead to the absolution, and then there's a resolution for the characters as well, but not so much in real life, as we are still faced with the same homophobia today. This goes on to the negatives at odds with the positives. It seems like there's always a consequence to the characters living freely, and this builds up towards something huge until the message of it all comes crashing through, which can be seen as a deconstruction. In conclusion, Moon So Blue is a story I hope I am able to share with the world someday, as I feel so strongly about its message and its characters. Thank you for listening.